Surviving the Applewhites, Chapter 23. By the time everyone was settled at the table for dinner, the dining room was so jammed with people and extra chairs that it was difficult to move. Winston, who had insisted on settling under the table by Jake's feet, had been banished to the out of doors. Edie, perched on one of the bar stools from the kitchen, had an excellent vantage point for watching the interaction between her father and Mrs. Montrose. But there was none. Her father at the foot of the table was avoiding eye contact with anyone. As the serving dishes of rice and lentils, chutney, flatbread, and yogurt sauce were passed, he stayed resolutely focused on serving himself and passing them on. Mrs. Montrose, squeezed between her daughter and Jeremy Bernstein across the table from E.D., was just as resolutely focused on Jeremy, alternately asking him questions about the life of a TV producer and dropping offhanded remarks about the many roles her daughter had played in the little theater productions. Govindaswamy came in from the kitchen with a huge bowl and offered it to Zebediah at the head of the table. The main dish, he said as he settled in his place nearest the kitchen. As promised, fried chicken. When Zebediah dished himself some, Edie thought it looked pretty much like most of Govindaswamy's main dishes. Chunks of meat and vegetables in a thick red sauce. It certainly wasn't like any fried chicken she'd ever seen. When the bowl reached Mrs. Montrose, she sat for a moment looking at it.
You did say fried chicken, didn't you?
She asked. Govindaswamy nodded. Fried chicken, yes, and old Govindaswamy family recipe. My mother made it often, as did her mother and her mother before her.
Oh, I see. It isn't quite what I expected.
Mrs. Montrose spooned some onto her plate next to her rice. You'll want some of the yogurt sauce, Govindaswamy said.
No, thank you. I'm not particularly fond of yogurt.
Suit yourself. Mrs. Montrose spooned a small amount of the chicken onto her daughter's plate and passed the bowl on. When everyone was served, Zebediah asked them to join hands. Let us offer heartfelt thanks to Ravi Govindaswamy for his fine, rich, and pungent cooking. Thanks as well to the Treybridge Little Theater for the opportunity to work together to bring a new artistic vision to the stage. And thanks to all the powers that be for the joining here of family, friends, and colleagues, for this abundance of food, of companionship, of... Here he looked directly at Randolph and raised his voice meaningfully. Tact and good sense. When they dropped hands, Edie watched her father dig into the food on his plate. She didn't think he'd been listening. Now that she'd watched Priscilla Montrose's audition, she understood his problem. It wasn't just that the girl was too tall to be the littlest Von Trapp. It wasn't just her voice. It was everything about her. The girl had stood like a telephone pole, rigid and totally unmoving, with her hands clasped in front of her like some old-fashioned opera star, and all through the yodeling part of the song had sung every syllable as if it were a separate word. Oh, ho, lady, orderly, oh. It didn't sound anything at all like yodeling. The lines she read were even worse. She could see why he thought it would be better to let the show be canceled than to have her in it. Edie looked over at Mrs. Montrose. She was just taking her first bite of chicken. She chewed once, and her eyes grew very wide. She looked wildly from side to side like a trapped animal, her face going a deep, rich pink. Her eyes watered. She gave a little squeak, put her napkin to her lips, swallowed, and snatched at her water glass, gulping down its contents without pausing for breath. Beads of sweat had broken out on her forehead.
Very, very interesting,
she said in a strangulated voice. She smiled at Govindaswamy, then she reached for her daughter's water and drank that too. The yogurt sauce is quite cooling, Lucille said. If you are finding it a little too spicy for your palate, Govindaswamy observed. You will discover that water does not help. It only dilutes the acid.
No, no, Mrs. Montrose said after a moment. Not too spicy. It's delicious.
She wiped her forehead with her napkin.
I'm just, very thirsty.
Priscilla Montrose had been picking at her rice. Now she raised a forkful of chicken. Her mother reached to stop her, but the girl had already popped the chicken into her mouth. She chewed and began to shriek, Hot, Mommy! Hot! Mommy! Hot! She spit the chicken back onto her plate and grabbed for her water glass. It was empty. She went on shrieking.
Manners, Prissy dear, manners,
Mrs. Montrose said, patting her daughter's back, her face getting pinker by the moment. Sybil, sitting on the little girl's other side, reached for the pitcher of grape Kool-Aid in front of Destiny. Try this, she said, pouring it into an empty water glass. Sugar cuts the burning. Priscilla stopped shrieking long enough to gulp down the Kool-Aid. Sybil filled her glass again. Mrs. Montrose held out her own glass.
That looks so good. Perhaps you might pour me a little as well.
Wimps, Edie thought. The chicken wasn't nearly as hot as some of Govindaswamy's dishes. She passed a plate of bread across the table. She might like the bread, and the rice is good with a little fruit chutney.
I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Montrose said. She's just not used to ethnic cooking.
After that, the meal went fairly smoothly, Edie thought. Priscilla ate nothing but bread washed down with grape Kool-Aid. Mrs. Montrose, still a little pink in the face, withdrew from the conversation. Smiling and nodding, she kept moving the chicken around on her plate, but Edie noticed that she was careful to actually eat only rice that hadn't been contaminated by any of the sauce. The other adults kept up a constant stream of positive chatter about the sound of music. They talked about how well things were going with the sets and costumes, how successful the run was bound to be. Jeremy mentioned several times how interested the TV executives were about the way it had been cast, and how impressed they were that such a groundbreaking production was being done by a theater in Traybridge, North Carolina. Randolph remained absolutely quiet. Twice Destiny got up from the table and went off to the schoolroom to check on the butterfly. When Jake explained what he was doing, Priscilla Montrose asked if she could go with him next time. Her mother took a bite of bread and nodded vaguely. Destiny finished his chicken, topped with liberal portions of yogurt sauce, drank the rest of his Kool-Aid, and got up again. Come on, he said to Priscilla. Let's he go fly now. It wasn't until Govindaswamy announced ginger saffron ice cream for dessert that everyone noticed that Destiny and Priscilla had not returned. Jake was sent to find them. In moments he was back. They're not in the schoolroom.
Where do you suppose they went?
Mrs. Montrose asked, her voice carefully polite, but tinged with alarm. Before anyone could respond, the answer was clear. From outside came the sound of two voices, one of them shrill and off-key, singing The Lonely Goatherd. Uh-oh, Jake said. Randolph sat up a little straighter, listening. Jake got up from the table and started toward the front of the house. I'd better make sure that Destiny has it. He was interrupted by a blood-curdling shriek. The singing had stopped. Wild barking had started. Help! Mommy! Mrs. Montrose rose from her chair and started to push her way round the table toward the sound of her daughter's voice. Zedediah, Archie, and Sybil all leaped up and started for the doorway. As they reached it, Priscilla Montrose, sobbing now, came running in, squeezed her way between them, dove past Edie and under the table, headed for her mother. Immediately behind her came Wolfie, and behind Wolfie came Winston, barking steadily. Wolfie butted Archie out of the way, then Sybil, then smashed into the table. The jolt tipped over all the glasses and the pitcher of Kool-Aid. A black swallowtail butterfly fluttered into the dining room. drifting serenely above the chaos.